Well, hey everyone, welcome to week number 5 of the 6-week SEO challenge. This is the big one with some really nerdy stuff in it, I guess we'll call it, right? As usual, this is brought to you by my company, Window Treatment Marketing Pros, and also by the Custom Home Decor Network. If you have not checked them out, make sure to do so at customhomedecornetwork.com. If you do have any questions, make sure to put those into the chat area. I should know where that's at by now, but I don't, so I just leave this slide as it has been. The 6-week roadmap has been updated with the week 5 tasks, so check that out at bit.ly/WTMP 6-week task. And by the way, this is case sensitive, so you do have to use the capital WTMP, you have to use the dashes and all those places where you see them on there. So that is it. Let's get started, and we're going to jump into Search Console and then jump over to Google Analytics after that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Google Chrome, and we're going to go visit Google Webmaster Tools. So the easiest way to find Webmaster Tools is really just to type it in, or you can, save it as a favorite. But I typically just type it in, Webmaster Tools. It usually pops up there. Once that comes up, they've actually renamed it to Google Search Console, so you'll see that instead. On that, and then what you should come to, as we spoke about, I believe in week 1. You should come to a screen that shows maybe a couple properties of yours, which should be some of your websites. So we're going to do a little investigation here and see some different things. So the very first thing that you notice when I'm logged into one of my clients, and he has a website called Electro Image LLC. He has 4 different versions here, so that's kind of strange. So why is that? Well, the first thing is this first one, electroimagellc.com, and the third one, www.electroimagellc.com. Those are the 2 ones that everybody should have no matter what. So the way that the search engines treat a website is, or a domain, is that this is a website and this is a website. So the fact that the address changed because we added www to the beginning of it, they consider that 2 different websites. So you really have to claim both of these and make sure that they're both in here as they show like this. And you do that by clicking on Add a Property and adding them in. Now, if you are also getting an SSL certificate or making your site secure, which I highly recommend you go ahead and do, then you're actually going to have to add 2 additional properties to the list, and that's the HTTPS Electro Image LLC and HTTPS www.Electro Image LLC. So if you have the SSL certificate, you're actually going to have 4 properties here, which is kind of crazy, but that's the way that you need to do it. So this particular client has actually just started a brand new website called Fastlane Fundraising. So I'm actually going to go ahead and add this live while we're doing this. So fastlanefundraising.com and continue. Now it's going to ask me to verify this. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can use your Google Analytics account, which is my favorite and the easiest way. However, sometimes when it comes up and says recommended, it says something else, okay? So if it says analytics, then you're probably good. You can click verify. But before I do that, if it says something else, then what you can do is go to alternate methods and choose if Google Analytics is in this list. You can choose it right there and hit verify. Now, this assumes that you already have the Google Analytics code loaded onto your page, which most of you probably have done a long time ago. So I have Google Analytics. I'm going to click verify, and there we go. Congratulations, you have successfully verified your ownership of fastlanefundraising.com. Go all the way back and click on Search Console again, because I want to do this entire thing again. So now we see I have my Fastlane fundraising down there. I'm going to click add a property. I'm going to do the same thing with the W's this time. www.fastlanefundraising. Continue. See, now it's telling me to do it by a different way. So I'm going to go to alternate methods. I'm going to choose Google Analytics. And there we go. So now when I go to my dashboard, Search Console dashboard, we'll see that I have 6 in there. Now, the Fastlane website does not have the SSL certificate, so I don't have to add those other 2 in yet. However, when he does purchase that, I'll come back and add those in as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and decide Search Console. So the first thing that we should do is to go to Site Settings, and that's going to be in the top right. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to choose one first, right? I need to choose the correct one too. So since the Fastlane site isn't actually up and running, I'm going to use his current site, which is this one. So now I'm going to go to the right-hand side and click on Site Settings. So you would just click on whichever one you're using, the WW or the non-WW. And if you're not sure, just pull up your website. Just go to your website, www.electroimagellc.com. And we'll see that it forwarded without the W's, and it also added the HTTPS in there. So this is the version in the dashboard that I need to be looking at, HTTPS Electroimage LLC, which is this one right here. Okay, so that's how you choose which one really counts. All the other ones really don't count, quite honestly, but they have to be claimed, right? Which is kind of crazy. So now I'm on the dashboard for this particular property. I'm going to go to the right-hand corner and go to Site Settings. So there's a couple things that we want to do in here. The first thing we want to do is choose our preferred domain. So this is it WW or non-WW? So I went to the site. I saw that the W's were not there. So I chose the one without the W's as my preferred domain. Okay. Crawl rate, pretty much I just leave this as the recommended setting by Google. And this is how often is Google going to come crawl your website. For most of us, we don't need it throttled any certain amount. We're not changing thousands of pages at a time. So it's probably fine just to let Google go ahead and continue to optimize it as they typically do. So, all right, the next thing that I want to do is to check the country settings. All right, so we're going to go over here on the left, and we're going to go to search traffic and then international targeting. Sounds fancy. But what we're really concerned with, for most everybody on the call today, you're probably going to just be targeting people in the US, right? So if that is the case, then over here in the country tag, or tab, sorry, you'll see that this checkbox has already been checked and that it says target users in the United States. So that's perfect. If I go back and I look at like the Fastlane fundraising, let me go back here and look at this one. And again, search traffic, international targeting. Since I just set this up, this is probably not set yet. So I definitely want to set this. I'm only wanting Google to really show my results in the United States. Okay, so I'm going to check that. I'm going to make sure that this says United States, and I'm going to hit save. So that will help cut down overseas traffic, traffic that's useless to you, especially if you're a very local company, then this would help. And if you don't ship items out of the United States, then that would be the same thing as well. All right. Next thing I want to show you, and this might not be something that you need to do, but it's definitely something that you should know how to do. And that's back over on the site, on the gearbox over here. If we look at users and property owners, these are people that can access your Google Webmaster Tools account. Okay. So currently I'm logged in as Rick, the owner of this particular property. And in this case, I want to give myself, or will, access to this site as well. So I'm going to plug in my username for Google, and I'm going to click over here and give myself full access, and then add. By the way, if you just want to give somebody access to look at it and read it, but not really change anything, you would give them restricted access. If you have hired an agency or something like that, you might want to give them full access to get in there and really fix things, change things, move things around, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So now we can see that I added myself as a user, full permissions, and then at any point, Rick can log in and delete me if he wants to. So that's the way that that works. All right. So next, let's go talk about sitemaps. So the sitemaps are pretty cool. This is something that helps your overall website. It helps Google really more than anything. It helps them be able to crawl your site quicker, and it's just called a sitemap. So if you've installed Yoast, for instance, in your WordPress installation, or if you have some other program that creates a sitemap, then this is where you would edit, or you would submit that sitemap. Now, if you don't have WordPress and you're not sure how to create a sitemap, what you can do is you can go to xml-sitemaps, sitemaps.com. And this website will actually create a sitemap for you. So you just put in your URL here. How often does your website change? Typically, you can just put weekly or something like that. And then you can leave these other ones blank, hit the start button, and it will actually go through every page on your website and output an XML file that you can then upload to your website and then point to that file. So it's called sitemap.xml, and that's what you would upload. So then when you went to crawl sitemaps, and then you go to add a sitemap, that's what you would add, just sitemap.xml. So in this case, he doesn't have one because the site hasn't launched yet, but typically this is where we would put sitemap.xml here, hit submit. So we'll see that it's going to fuzz. I'm going to hit the refresh button here, and it's going to say we can't find that page. It doesn't exist. See, one error. That doesn't exist. Okay. So if you're using WordPress, then let me show you Red Canoe. Let me open up a new tab here, move it over for you. redcanoemedia.com. Log into the back end of my website. Now I'm using the Yoast SEO plugin. So over on the left, I'm going to go down to SEO, XML Sitemaps. And this is where I can kind of set up my sitemaps. So of course I want to make sure that's enabled, which it should be. And then a little bit down, it says you can find your XML sitemap here, and there's a button. So I'm going to click that button, and that will take me to the main XML sitemap for my site. So this is the link up here that I need. Now I don't need the https://redcanoemedia.com. All I need is everything after the slash. So in this case, my website is sitemap_index.xml. Okay. So in Google Webmaster Tools, that's what you would add. You would click Add Site Test Map, and then you would paste that part in and hit Submit. I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's going to fail because it's not really there. But then I can click Refresh the page. And again, I'll get an error because it doesn't exist. So what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll look at one that has been done on his Electro site. So we'll go to Crawl, Sitemaps. And now we'll see here that there are some results. 491 web pages submitted, 1,600 images, a couple videos. So we see that it's doing things. Now it does tell you that there are some warnings. Warnings are better than errors. Errors mean something just broke and didn't work right. warnings or things that maybe you need to fix, maybe you don't. But those can be looked at a different date. What you're really concerned is that your sitemap has been submitted. Secondly, you want to make sure that the number of web pages is consistent with what you think you have on your site. So if it says 491 pages submitted and you think you only have 30 pages, then something's crazy. Something's wrong. There's some sort of setting either in Yoast or in this website that created something wrong. But whatever the case is, those numbers should match up. Same for the other way. If you have 400 pages and you submit it and it only finds 30, then again, something is wrong with the way that your sitemap is being created in the first place. And you probably should contact your web person to find out what exactly is going on with that, that's making it not show up correctly. All right. So that is very important for your sitemaps, and that's how you get those set up in the first place. Next, let's go to search appearance over on the left and structured data. So structured data is some data that engines got together and said, you know what, there are certain things that always show up on websites that we really should just always have the same. So for instance, the product name, if it's an article, if it has a price, if it has a color, these kind of things, they're always the same on any website. So they set up standards for those and say, every time that you're going to send a price or put a price on your page on the internet, mark it in such a way that all the search engines know exactly what that is. So there are some other ones. Obviously, you can see some different ones here. But if you don't have structured data on your site or you're not sure, what you can do is, I'm just going to go to an internal page here. Let's go to puzzle printing. All right. So I'm going to copy that link, and then I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type in structured data testing tool. Okay. And we should get one here from Google. I'm going to click on this first result here. All right. Now, do I want to fetch a URL or do I want to actually paste in some code? No, I don't want to do that. I'll just plug in that URL, that puzzle printing URL, and click run test. And it will either come back and say there's no structured data or there is, right? So we can see over here on the right that it does have some stuff that came up, 0 errors, 0 warnings. So this is all the code related to that happening. But just the fact that I see it says 0 errors, 0 warning is good. You may also see something that comes up and says there's no structured data on this site at all. So if there is no structured data on your site, if you're using WordPress, then there is a free plugin called Raven Schema, Schema, and I will link to this in the task document as always. But this plugin will actually create that stuff for you on the fly, which is kind of nice. So all you have to do is upload this plugin, and it will set up all of your schema or structured data for your posts and your pages and things of that sort, which is just terrific. A lot easier to deal with than trying to do it all manually. So the other thing is, if you have an e-commerce site, then you're probably going to want to use, well, I take that back. If you're on WordPress and you're using the most popular e-commerce tool, which is called WooCommerce, then there is a Yoast WooCommerce. There is a plugin specifically for this, which does cost money, but it will add the pricing, all the different attributes of the products, things like that, the rich pins type stuff. And it looks like it is $49 per site to have that on there. So this plugin does cost money, but it's definitely worth it because it adds all those little things to the for when the search engines come around to digest those pages. So if you have structured data, this is where it would show up. and we can see that some items have errors. So there's probably some things that needed to be visited related to this, but just the fact that it thinks that we have, structured data on the site is a good start. All right. So that's good. Next, we're going to go down to HTML improvements. And for those of you who signed up in week 2, I think it was, to the Ahrefs free trial, some of these things might look a little redundant to you. But what the Google Webmaster Tools does is it actually shows you some different things that are wrong with your website. If there's duplicate meta descriptions, long meta descriptions, short meta descriptions, title tag problems, things of that sort. So this is some stuff related to the actual SEO of your website and some things that you can fix. Now so for instance, this says short meta descriptions. I have 10. I can click on that and it'll tell me which pages have short meta descriptions. So some of these looks like they're product pages and things like that. Here is the outdoor ground stake. So if I click on that, it'll take me to that page on my website. Okay. And then if I want to do a right click view source, you don't have to do these steps, but if I did, I could see right here, here's my meta description. Sure enough, outdoor ground stake. That's pretty short. This really should be, around 2 sentences with some keywords in it and things explaining what this page is about. So I definitely can see that that's not correct. So these are things that I can go fix. And then the next time Google comes around to index my pages, those things will be in there. They will be indexed and fixed, which is terrific. So that's under the HTML improvements area. All right. Next, we're going to skip down to accelerated mobile pages. This is something new. Google came out late 2015 and said this was coming, and they're calling it AMP, of course, accelerated mobile pages. But what they are doing is they're taking sites that are mobile friendly and they're adding some code, they're not adding any code. They're putting it through a process that actually reduces the amount of code that page takes to load. And they're accelerating the pages when they load on mobile devices. So hence the name, which makes sense, right? So this is fairly new. So on whatever date this is, 4/29, sometime on 4/28, I loaded a new plugin specifically for Google AMP on this particular client's website. The tool is created by a company called Automatic, Automattic, Google AMP plugin. And if you're on WordPress, this is created by, like I said, Automatic. Automatic is the company that actually created WordPress. So this is definitely a good plugin to have on your site. So this is one that all you have to do is download it, install it. I don't think it even asks you any questions as far as your website. I think you just download it, install it, and boom, then it starts indexing your pages. There we go. So it starts indexing the pages and seeing if there's any problems, anything like that. So again, if you're on WordPress, another easy fix. Really, really simple to get that done. So let's move over to the next area on the Google Webmaster Tools, and that's called search traffic. So this is the 6-week SEO course. So I want to make sure that we're looking at things related to SEO. Under the first tab here, or the first option, is Search Analytics. If you click on that, you're going to see, hopefully, some information about your website. Now, if your website's brand new, you're not going to have any information because it doesn't have any history. But you should, even if you just signed up for Google Webmaster Tools, you should still get some data in here if your website has been around for a while, because they're collecting that data. Just the fact that you hadn't claimed your website and shared it, it doesn't matter. They're still collecting that data. So if we go back to week 1 of the 6-week challenge, remember when we talked about keywords? Here is a list of keywords that people have typed into the search engines and clicked over to your website. So this is not necessarily a ranking, but this is times when somebody typed something in and your website showed up in the Google results, which is terrific. So Electro Image, that makes sense. It's a brand, that's his brand. So it would make sense that that name would show up, right? But something like fundraising envelopes, which is a product of his, he showed up and one person actually clicked on it. I can actually click on this result, get a little more information. Looks like on 5/11, somebody clicked on that particular query and came to my website. So these are words that your business is showing up for in Google. Whether somebody's clicking it is a different case, but these words are coming up, or your website is coming up when somebody clicks on those particular searches. So that's pretty important. If you find out that these keywords are not matching up to what you're trying to do, then you need to go back and optimize your site a little bit differently, probably. Next, over on the left, we're going to look at manual actions. Now, hopefully for everybody watching this video, this is completely blank. No manual web spam actions found. If it's not blank, then you've got some serious issues probably with your website. It has been compromised. There are a bunch of bad links pointing back to it. Something is not correct. But these are manual actions, meaning that Google actually stepped in and manually penalized your website in some way. And if they did, they will explain what the problem was. There was a bunch of bad links to your site. Your website has been hacked, things of that sort. So those kind of things will show up in here. They will explain how to fix those things. And then they will actually give you a button for a re-inclusion request. So once you've fixed all the problems, you can ask them to go back and look at it again and hopefully lift the manual action that has been put in place. So that is very important, but hopefully it stays nice and blank for everybody. Next, let's jump down to mobile usability. Again, 2015, Google came out strong and said, you know what, if your site's not mobile friendly, then we're not going to show it in the index as often. So we can see here that when I look at errors on mobile devices, it seems like I have just a couple here. The text is too small to read. That's an easy thing to fix. Content is wider than the screen. Now this tells me that something is wrong with this website when it comes to looking at it on a mobile device. Something is too wide on it and people can't see the screen correctly, or they have to scroll or something like that. So it looks like it was a special page, a blog, and then one of these shopping items has something wrong with it. So what I can do is I can actually click on that and it'll give me some ideas on how to fix that particular one. It's kind of interesting that there's a bunch of items in there, but only one shows up in the shop as having a problem. So I'm not too concerned about that. It was detected back on April 30th. It's probably not that big of a deal, but worth keeping an eye on this and just go back and double checking, make sure everything is okay, because you never know. All right. So the mobile usability is important, and the fact that things are mobile friendly or need to be mobile friendly, definitely important now. So, all right, let's go over to the next button here, which is Google Index, and click on Index Status. So not a whole lot you can do here, but again, it's good to see that Google is indexing my pages. So when I'm putting up new blogs, I can see kind of a trend going upwards here. So as I'm putting in new pieces of content, it looks like they're indexing more of those pages, which is good. Not too worried about these little dips, because they bounced right back up. If I saw a sudden drop off, then I would know something's wrong. Something has changed where Google has been blocked, or for some reason they can't get to my site and I need to figure something out. But really, nothing you can do here. Just look at it and make sure that things are trending nicely. The next one down is content keywords. So this is interesting. This is, if I look at this website, or sorry, if I'm Google and I look at this website and I just look at the content, these are the keywords that I'm using the most on the website across all pages. So the number one keyword that I'm using, where is, let me see if I can find it. Looks like it's design 5 times, 5 variants. Design, designed, designs, designing, and designs possessive. So it kind of picks out the different versions, and tells you how many times you're using them, and then how important those are compared to what they think your website is about. So the fact that this is a printing website and they found the word printing and they think that the significance is a full 10, that's terrific, 100%. That's exactly what I want them to think. Now, if it was skateboards as the number one, and my website is a printing website, then I know something's not right. So this is looking at the content that you've written and showing you how important they think that is. Now, if you go back and look at the analytics and see what people are actually typing in to find your website, these words should probably somewhat match up. So I can see there's printing, print shop, fundraiser, that shows up a lot. So these words should match up in some way to what the content keywords are, because if I'm writing the right content, then I'm going to show up for the right terms. All right. Okay, let's see. What is next? Crawl. So crawl is probably the place I spend the most time in for my clients. First thing here is crawl errors. So these are a list of pages or URLs that somebody that Google followed from a link somewhere. So somewhere on the internet, maybe on my website, maybe not, somewhere on the internet, there is a link to electroimage.llc.com/about/Chicago printing. However, if I look at that and I click on this link, it's probably a page that doesn't exist, right? So if somebody followed that link and ended up at this page, it's terrible user experience. They're not going to find what they want. So what I need to do is I need to create some sort of a redirect for this page and say, maybe since I don't have a Chicago printing page, maybe I redirect it to the St. Louis page, or I redirect it to my homepage. Whatever it may be, I need to create that redirect. Now, over on the right, I can see linked from, and I can see who's linking to that. So it looks like they're all pages that are on my site that have that link. So here's one, printing labels and stickers. So I can actually go to the labels and stickers page and remove that link. So most likely somewhere on this page, I'm linking to Chicago right there, to the Chicago page that doesn't exist anymore. So in this case, instead of writing any sort of a redirect, I'll just erase this link because the page it's not even there. So there's no reason to have that that particular link there in the first place, right? So that's an easy fix. Now, if it was an external site, somebody else linked to me to this particular page, then I can't log into their site and fix it, right? So what I have to do is then I have to create some sort of a redirect. So I would create a redirect in my site using the redirect plugin, redirection plugin that we talked about in week 2 or 3. And once I fix that redirect or create that, then I can mark this as fixed. And it's going to say, are you sure? It won't show up, but if we find the link broken again, it's going to show up back on here again. So I'm going to cancel it because I did not fix it. But then, just go through this list and knock out, however many of these at a time you can. Some of them are easy, some of them are harder, some of them don't exist anymore. So it really just depends on how much time you have. But this list will probably never be zero. There's always the opportunities from somebody around the internet to fat finger something and link to you incorrectly, and you can't go fix anything on their site. So you just write the redirect, mark it as fixed in here, and keep this number down as low as you can. That's really the best task for this. Now, I've seen websites that have had 17,000 not found errors. And those are bad because that's a lot of links to your website and missed opportunities that you're not getting credit for. So definitely worth going in there and checking out. The other thing I want to show you is this fetches Google, and we actually talked about this earlier in the program. If you create a new page on your site, a brand new blog or something, then you can actually go there. I'm going to go to his blog. You can actually submit it to the index in kind of a fashion, I guess. So here's his newest blog. I don't know if it's been indexed or not, but I'm going to go ahead and grab this and plug it in here. And I don't need that slash, it looks like. So I'm going to fetch this new blog, and you can either do fetch or fetch and render. And render just means show us the result, what the page looks like. I already know what the page looks like, so I'm just going to click fetch. So now that I've clicked that button, Google goes out and fetches that page or grabs that page, and then I get this little button over here, submit to index. And like I said, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but now I can submit that to the index. I can say, yeah, I'm really not a robot. Just crawl this particular URL. You have 10, what do you have, 500 of your remaining 500 available. So I'm probably not going to do 500 new ones this month, but I'm going to go ahead and click go. And then what that does is that takes that particular URL and I kind of like butt in line from when they could have come around and indexed my page. They may have not indexed it for another week or so. Now I've butted it in line and it'll get indexed fairly quickly. So we can see it's been submitted to the index now, and we're good to go there. So, all right. Next, I want to jump back up to the top and talk about messages. So as we can see, I have no messages here, but from time to time, Google will send you messages and say, hey, we've noticed some suspicious activity, or there's been a manual action placed against you, or you've suddenly had this huge increase in traffic and we're not sure why. So if there's any messages, you'll see those in here. And typically anytime that something shows up in here, it also hits your email as well. So you'll always know when you have some sort of a problem, but always good just to go up there and check that messages just to make sure. All right. Down at the bottom, security issues. This is another thing that you can just check from time to time. Make sure that your content hasn't been hacked, anything like that. If it has, then you have to figure out why. If it's a WordPress site, you probably have some plugins that are out of date or some themes or something that need to be deleted. But if there are any hacking related issues, they will show up here, and then you'll need to fix those. And once again, click the re-inclusion request thing, which takes about a week right now. I just had somebody do it, and I think they were put back into the index within about 7 days. So definitely important there. Last thing in Webmaster Tools is under the gears, click on Google Analytics property. So the important thing here is to make sure that this is my my Google Webmaster Tools account, that it equals exactly the right URL in my Google Analytics. So actually, when I was setting up this class, I noticed that it was actually HTTP. The S wasn't in there. So I had to go back and fix this and set it to the correct one, which is with the S in this case, because we have an SSL certificate. So just make sure that those two are correct. Hit save. If you don't see it in the list, then you're going to have to add it as a property in analytics, and I'll show you how to do some of that in a couple minutes here. All right, let's see if there's any questions. Anybody got any questions or anything about anything that we've covered so far? Let's see anything right now. Okay. Man, I must just be like explaining everything perfectly. So that's great. It's probably not true, but it's great. So next, let's go ahead and jump over to Google Analytics. And we do that by going to analytics.google.com. Grab a drink. and jump on the right account here. Now, if you've already got analytics set up, which I'm pretty sure most of you do, if you have more than one property, you'll see something like this. If you just have one, it'll probably dump you straight into it. Kind of a dashboard, you know, most of you are probably used to seeing. This one's filtered, so these aren't really the right numbers. But you get the idea that, you know, when you log in, you see this graph and you're like, yeah, there's what else to do, right? That's typically the way that it seems to go. But, you know, here's some things that I wanted to show you about analytics in relation to SEO. First of all, we're going to go through the admin section. So even though it dumped us straight into reporting, we actually want to look at some of the different settings on our website to make sure that they are correct in the first place, okay? And actually, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to this one that we've been talking about today, the Fast Lane Fundraising, the brand new website that we're going to be setting up, because I know some of these settings are not correct because they haven't been touched yet, okay? So when I click on admin, then the first thing that I want to do is I want to go over to the right in this third column and go to view settings. And these are different settings related to my analytics. And I want to make sure that everything matches up. So right here, we can see that if I had an SSL certificate, I would want to change this to the S. We don't have one yet, so I haven't done that. This is also where I would put the www if I was using the W's. Okay, I'm not, so that's good there. Next, time zone. Typically, this is set to Pacific by default, so I'm going to want to make sure that I change this to Central because that's where this particular client is located. So I set that there. Default page can probably be left empty as well as any sort of URL query parameters. These are both optional, don't need to be touched. I do recommend turning on this bot filtering, and that helps filter out any fake visits from other bots and things like that. So I do turn that on. And then lastly, the most important thing probably on this page is the site search tracking. So I'm gonna take a little detour and we're gonna come back to this, okay? So if somebody comes to your website, in most cases, you probably have some sort of a search feature. So if I'm looking at this particular website, I see that there's a search feature up here. So if I were to search for, well, let's search for something that maybe has postcards. I hit enter. The website is going to go search for things with the word postcards in it, right? But what I'm interested in is up here in the URL. What I can see in this URL is that there is this S equals postcards. So the S is called the parameter. And that is what I'm most interested in. If I look at Google and I just type postcards, Google's is a little more difficult to decipher, right? But we can see up here that there's some stuff, blah, I don't see the word postcards yet. And then, oh, there it is at the end. Q equals postcards. So for Google, their particular search query parameter is Q. Now, if you're on WordPress, it's S. It's always S. That's just the way it is. So depending on what kind of site you're on is going to affect your answer in the next area in analytics. So we know that for WordPress, and this website is going to be built in WordPress, that S will be the parameter. So I'm going to turn on my site search tracking, and we'll see here it's asking what is the parameter. Well, it's S. So now what Google's doing is they say anytime that they see S equals something, they know that whatever follows that is something that someone searched for, okay? And that's important because in analytics, it will actually keep track of all of that data and let us know when people searched for something, and it will keep track of that and how many times they searched for it, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to turn on my S there, and then I'm going to check mark this box down here to strip query parameters out of the URL. So I don't really need this to show up as a page in my Google Analytics, all I really care about is the fact that somebody used my search function and looked up the word postcards. Okay, so I'm going to turn that on, and we don't need to turn on these site search categories. That's optional. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, now from now on, if somebody comes to this website and does a search, Google Analytics is going to keep track of that and show me all those different searches. And the reason that's important, especially in an e-commerce situation, is somebody might type in a generic term to come to find a specific website. Then when they get on that website, they might type in a specific product. You might do something similar on using Amazon, for instance. Amazon shows up in a lot of results. So you might type in kayak, and then when one of the results come up on Amazon, you come to their kayak page and you might want to type in red or blue or white water or ocean kayak. So you get a lot more specific once you actually find a website that has that kind of stuff on it. So it's a lot of times, even though what we saw in Google Webmaster Tools of how people clicked on, type something in and found us, that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't do another search when they got onto our website to search for something more specific. So we want to make sure that we keep track of that information. All right. So, all right, top left corner here is the little back button. I'm going to click that, and then we're going to go down to e-commerce settings. If you have an e-commerce type website, then you're going to want to make sure that you turn this on. So this website is going to have an e-commerce functionality set up to it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. And then it wants to know, do I want to enable related products? In other words, do I want Google to keep track of related products to this, whatever was sold? Sure, it doesn't hurt any. So I'll turn that on, and I'm going to hit next step. And now I can see that my e-commerce is turned on. And then I have the option of turning on the enhanced e-commerce reporting, which is something that Google came out with, I think around late 2014. But what that does is that gives us a little more intel on how people found us, some of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. However, I should let you know that this is, if you just use the generic code that Google gave you to set up your analytics in the first place, this will not work. There is something else you have to add if it's in, once again, this is an e-commerce situation. So I like a plugin called Actionable Analytics. There it is for WooCommerce. It's a plugin that's looks like it's $56, but it automatically adds all of that extra data to every purchase, to every visitor, and it's definitely worth it. This is a great plugin. So if you have an e-commerce situation and if you're using WordPress and WooCommerce, definitely recommend grabbing that. And then we're going to go ahead and hit submit here. Okay, success. So that's done. I'm going to click the upper left-hand button back to this page again, and I want to look next at filters. So filters are things where when something comes and visits your website, Google is tracking every single thing that happens. So sometimes there's some things I want to filter out. Particularly, if I was a business owner, I'd want to filter out myself from the website so that it doesn't look like it's getting more visits than it really is. I really don't want to count myself because I'm not a customer. I want to track everybody else that's visiting the site outside of that. So what I do is I'm going to add a filter for myself. Okay. And the way you do that is just click add a filter. And then it's going to do you want to create one or apply an existing one? Well, I'm going to create one, and I'm going to call this Will Office. Okay. Next, it wants to know the filter type. So there's a bunch of predefined one. That's probably all we need. I'm going to exclude traffic from a specific IP address because I know that my office and anybody that has a home location or whatever, typically their IP address doesn't change unless they cycle their router, their modem or something like that. So then it wants to know, that are equal to, it wants to know my IP address. So what I can do is I can just go out to what is my IP.com and it'll tell me. And sometimes it's a nice little cute little thing like this. Sometimes it's a really long code, that's 20, 30 characters, but whatever it is, copy it and plug it into here and then hit save. From now on, every time I visit this particular website from this location I'm at right now, which is my office, those visits will not be counted in the overall analytics results, which is great because I don't want that to happen. If you have graphics designers or if you've hired an agency or anything like that to work for you, any sort of contractors, you probably want to go ahead and filter them out too, just to make sure that you're getting really good results only from visitors that that are not in your control, I guess you could say. I have my printer client here. He has 4 contractors that work from home doing graphics, things like that. So we actually go through and add all of those people in. The other thing that I want to say about this is this really needs to be on your calendar to be revisited every 3 months or so. Make sure that just in those last 3 months, their power didn't go out, or something was wrong with their modem and they had to cycle the power, anything like that. So we want to kind of keep these numbers correct. So if you have 2 different locations, if you have an office and you have a home location that maybe you jump on your iPad and get on, then you want to make sure that you add that in as well. So those are very important, these filters, to make sure that you're getting just the correct results. Okay. I'm going to jump back over. It looks like somebody has a question. Once you turn on site search tracking, does it begin to show up immediately when someone does a site search? Terrific question. Yes. It starts tracking it immediately. Typically, Google Analytics is around 6 hours behind from the reporting standpoint. So yes, it will start tracking immediately, but you won't see that show up in your analytics, usually until later that day or usually the next day. So yeah, it will show in your analytics immediately as far as that goes. All right, good. Great question. Thank you. Let's see. Revisited every 3 months. We got that. All right. Last thing, we're on this page again, and I want to go to goals. Now, if you are if you're in an e-commerce situation, then you probably don't need to pay attention to goals too much. There are some advanced goals you might want to pay attention to as time goes on, but really your number one goal is revenue and conversions, making sure that people come to the website and convert into a purchase. If you're not in an e-commerce situation, let's say you're a plumber or you're a local company that offers services or something like that, then you need other ways to track what people are doing on your site that you think is a good thing. That's something that they did that engaged with my business beyond just looking at a couple pages and going away. So there are some things that you can track. For instance, if they came to your website and filled out the contact form and contacted you for more information, that would be great. If they downloaded some sort of a white paper or something you were offering, that would be a good thing to track. So those are things that you do in the goals area. So there are a lot of others, but really the big one is somebody came to the website and did something. They downloaded something or they engaged in some way, right? So when I click on the create a new goal button, there's a couple things I can see that some things have happened here. And probably what I'm going to pick is Let's see, they contacted me. Okay. They viewed my number, directions, they chatted, or they sent an email, they filled out a form, something like that. So this would be something good that I would want to track. So I'm going to click next or continue here. And then it gets me the name of the goal. So somebody contacted us. That's fine. All right. Now, how do I track that that goal has actually been attained? Typically, when it's something like a contact us, typically we're looking for a destination that they arrived at online, which is my thank you page. So they filled out the form, they clicked submit, and then they got a thank you page that said, hey, thanks for contacting us. We'll be in touch within blah, blah, blah time, right? So I'm going to check destination and click continue. Now what it wants is it wants my thank you page. Okay. What is the page on my site that says, thank you for filling out this form? The only reason anybody is ever going to get to that page on the web is because they filled out that form. So that way, if Google sees somebody visit that page, they know that goal has been attained and they get a check mark. Okay. So here, what I would put is just everything after my .com. So it would be, I don't have the page, but I'll make one up. Thanks. Actually, it could just be thanks. That could be easy enough, or thank you. Maybe I have something longer like thank you newsletter, right? If somebody filled out my newsletter or contact page or something like that. Whatever that is, that needs to be the thank you URL. You can assign a value. So if I know that everybody that reaches a certain page has donated $5, I could turn this on and set that to be a $5, price. Now, most cases, thank yous, contact forms don't really carry a value, so it's kind of hard to turn that on in most cases. But nonetheless, that's how you would set up a goal, and then you can click save. You can also verify this goal, so they'll actually go back and see, did anybody actually reach this page in the past 7 days? And they'll say, yep, looks like it's working. So this page doesn't exist, so it's not going to work for me. But so now I can see that it's going to start tracking those goals for me, which is terrific. That's exactly what I want. So that's all there. And then I'm going to show you some things on the front end. We got another question. When you turn on the e-commerce tracking in Google Analytics, do you need to add any other code to your WordPress site for Google to track the sales? Add any code, but you do need to use the actionable analytics. You need to use this. If you're in an e-commerce situation, you need to add this. You need to use this for sure to make sure that you get all of that. And this automatically adds the correct code to the correct pages. All right, so here we are on the front end of the site of analytics. And all I did was I clicked up here at the top on reporting. So this is where I get all the pretty little graphs and stuff like this. So we can see that on this brand new website, there is no traffic, which obviously makes sense. But on if I were to switch to a different account of his, we would see that there is traffic to the site. Again, it's a filtered view, but at least we get some sort of idea. So let's look at a couple things in here that I think are important for your SEO and make sure that things are on the right page. So over on the left, we basically have a couple different sections here, and each one of these break out into bigger areas. So the first one that I want to show you is audience, and then overview is the default one that everybody gets. But if we go down here to geo and location, then what I can see here is I can see where people are visiting me on the internet. And everything that's in blue is a place that somebody has visited my site. And the darker the color, the more people have come from that particular location. So this is great because I really don't need all these other places visiting me. I'm not going to ship anything to them. But I can see that the United States is nice and dark. And I can click on that, and it'll actually let me drill down a little bit more. So now I can see that no visitors from Oregon, no visitors from any of these states, but I can see that Massachusetts and Missouri are some of the top. We can see how many people, and I can click on Missouri, go down even further and see where people are visiting me from. So almost all from St. Louis. And then looks like I got one visitor from Kansas City. But what I can do is I can scroll down, and now I can actually see what locations people are actually visiting me from. So pretty cool, pretty interesting. This is great because this is what I need people to visit my site. If I'm a St. Louis service related industry, then it would make sense that almost all of my visits come from that particular area. After location, I wanted to show you mobile. All right, on mobile overview, what we see here is this is just showing you kind of where people are coming from using. So we can see that out of 639 visitors, 79% of those are using the desktop. All right, so that's interesting. That's pretty high number. Typically, these numbers are 50-50 now between desktop and the mobile tablet area. So we can see that the people that are visiting on the tablet are spending the most time on this particular website, looking at the most pages. So even though it's a smaller number, these are better qualified, I guess, people, or they're spending more time looking at something related to my website. So very good to know. If these numbers are really bad, zeros here, then you know that maybe your site's not mobile friendly, or the pages aren't rendering correctly. Something along those lines is happening, but it's definitely important to see. Next, we're going to go look at acquisition. So this is, how did we get our visitors? How did they come to our website? And really, I just want to look at two things here. The first thing is alt traffic, and then source/medium. And this is, again, more of an informational piece. It tells me where my traffic's coming from. So a lot of people coming from my organic results. A lot are coming from direct/none. And what this means is they typed in the URL manually, or they saw a flyer, or they got a business card or something and typed it in, or the website that sent them did not report where they were coming from. That's pretty normal. Next is some ads I'm running on Facebook. Next is Bing organic, and then we see Yahoo organic down here. So you see some different things in here. I like to click on the medium button, and what that does is that just gives me the second part of it right here, CPC, organic, referral, and it gives me a better idea of if I'm spending money on a particular thing, is it working? So I'm spending money on SEO. I want to see a nice number in the organic. If I'm spending money on pay-per-click, then that number would be there. If I'm running a newsletter or some sort of a drip campaign, then it would show up under email. So these are the different things. You'll notice the people that come from email, the average of only 2 people, but still the average 19 minutes almost on the site. So that is some really good traffic. It's a small number, but they're very engaged. They looked at 6 pages. They obviously read some different things. So that's good to know that my email traffic is working very, very well. So that is definitely something worth checking out, and something that I think is important. The other thing in this particular area under acquisition is search engine optimization, which is what we've been talking about for 5 weeks now, right? This only works if back when we were looking at the Webmaster tools, that you did that connection correctly. So if you did it correctly, then Google Webmaster Tools is going to share that information over to analytics. And we will see that Webmaster Tools is 2 days behind, and it's always been that way. So you're not going to get your latest 2 days of information. But here we can see some different things that people are typing in again to maybe find our website, and how many people, how many times that particular search showed up, how many times people clicked on that search, and then where we were in the rankings for that search. So for EI Logo, which makes sense because that's the name of his company, he ranks number 1. Okay. For the phrase political banners, he ranks number 3.1 on average. So that's terrific. So something like this, business folders were 4.2. So maybe we can do something to optimize that page a little bit. And then here's some down in the 7s. Plastic fundraising cards were still ranking on page 1, but we're almost in the 8th position. So maybe there's some things that I can do there to help optimize that page a little bit better to make it a little stronger. So that's definitely important. Next, we're going to look at behavior. So this is the behavior of how, once people got to my website, what are some things that they did or that might help me with my SEO. So under site content, all pages, this will actually show you your most popular pages, which is really cool to know. If obviously you should see your home page, which is the / you should see that in here. In many cases, the home page is not the most popular page on your website. So don't be upset if that's a 4 or 5. That's actually probably a really good thing. That means that your other pages are very optimized to bring that person to exactly the information they need. You really don't want people to go to your homepage and then have to find what they're looking for. Really, you just want them to land straight on these other pages. So under graphics design, his brochure design page is doing fairly well. People are spending 4 minutes on that page. Really good. Lots of people coming in on that. So it might have been from a newsletter or something, or whatever the reason was, lots of people looking at that particular page. Now, if you've built some pages and you don't see them in here, then that might be cause for concern. Maybe there's a reason why that page isn't being indexed, or it has a lot of competition, or you just haven't optimized it. So it gives you the first 10. By the way, you can go down here and choose however many you really want to see on a page in that particular way, so you can see kind of how that goes. But definitely worth checking out the all content section and seeing what content is the best performing. All right. Next, site speed overview. This is, once again, just looking at the speed of your site, which we talked about early in the 6-week program. And these are different pages on the site when Google Analytics noticed that there was some sort of a problem. So average page load time, we want this to stay right around 0, which is terrific. However, on May 8th, it looks like it took 6.5 seconds. And on April 30th, it took 4.8 seconds on average to load sites. So the fact that most of these are zeros is good. If I were seeing something like this over and over again, I'd probably want to consider checking with my hosting company and asking why pages are taking so long to load. The other thing you can do is turn on caching, which is CACHING, and that is something that your hosting company, again, can help you with to make sure that the caching is turned on and that pages can be served as quickly as possible, which is always good. Next, after we look at the site speed, the last thing that I wanted to show you was the conversions. So all the way down at the bottom, this is the conversions, and this is where we would see goals. So he has a goal set up for every time somebody fills out the contact form. So we can see that people are filling out that form and they are reaching the thank you page. So we can see how many times that's happened over the last 30 days. And if there's any other goals you have set up, this is where you would see those. And then if you had an e-commerce website, this is where you would see that information. How much stuff has been sold, which items work the best, what is the average price, all that kind of stuff. How much revenue have you made? That's where you would see that we turned on earlier in the program. So conversions is definitely important. This is where you see how much money you made, or different things that have happened related to your business, to see those come to fruition. So that's all I'm going to run through today. We've gone over on our time a bit, but I wanted to make sure that that when you guys set up the analytics and the Webmaster tools, that you have the correct settings in place so that you can get the best information for your business. So I don't see any more questions, and I appreciate everybody jumping on. And next week is our final week. We're going to be doing an overview of some things we've talked about in the past, and I'm going to share some new tools, some different tricks that I know you'll definitely want to jump on for our last call. But and meanwhile, have a terrific rest of your day. I'll talk to you later.